What is your level of consciousness? This video is an intention to support you in understanding the spectrum of the levels of consciousness, as well as where you fit on it, and give you a roadmap to elevate your consciousness to a higher frequency. For those who are unfamiliar with this is a chart that has been gifted to humanity by Dr. David Hawkins. He is an absolutely outstanding scientist, scholar, and way shower for humanity to move into a higher resonant understanding of who and what we are and our place in the cosmos. Understanding this chart is understanding that there are many levels of consciousness going from approximately 0, although David starts the chart at 20, up to 1,000. Now we will talk about what is beyond 1,000 at a later time, but for right now, we can understand that at the bottom, there we go, we see shame. I will need some new layers, there we go. At our base frequency, the lowest energy, presumably above death itself, or absolute despair. So shame is at the lowest level of consciousness at 20, and between there and 1,000, 700 plus is generally considered enlightenment, all the way up to 1,000. And while it's not drawn on this chart, the idea is that it goes to there. I'm writing this with my mouse. I suppose I could just use the pen and then it would be a lot cleaner. Well, my handwriting was never the cleanest, but nevertheless, this is the spectrum that goes between shame and enlightenment, with 200 being the threshold of transformation. Now, in order to explain this, I will shift over for a moment to these charts. There is a dividing line at 200 in the levels of consciousness. It is a level where everything below it moves in the direction of force, as in it's a downward negative forcing of things to happen. It is the level of vibration of shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear, desire, anger, and pride. And pride in the sense of the 7 deadly sins version of pride, as we have a few understandings of pride in the world today. Everything above 200 on the consciousness chart is a source of power. It is a movement into a higher consciousness, and naturally is an elevating force, the force, if you will, the source field, the God source consciousness spirit that is alive within all of us. And when we move ourselves from a state of force, as in forcing things to happen and be the way that we want them to divine power, then we ourselves move through stages of courage, neutrality, willingness, acceptance, reason, love, joy, peace, and enlightenment. Once we reach 1,000, we reach into the realms of sainthood, and everything beyond that moves into the space of ascension and ascended mastery. It is our destiny as humans to move fully beyond the level 1,000, collectively. And we are learning how, and it is a process. If we were to take a moment and check the average level of consciousness for the world, we might find that it hovers somewhere in between 75 and 350. And we will check this in a moment, but first we must know how to check. So the best way, the easiest way, the funnest way to check a level of consciousness for anything is through muscle testing. You might be familiar with muscle testing, that traditional thing where you put your arm out and someone pushes down on the arm, and if you have a strong thought, the arm will resist. And if you have a weak thought, then the arm will give away. Now, this is something that each of us can do with ourselves, with our own bodies. And the way that I learned was to take these fingers and wrap them around each other. You can use any fingers that you want to, but I like using the middle finger and the thumbs. And I'll make a link, and I'll ask a question, and I'll get an answer. And one of the easiest ways to start is to simply say, show me yes, and then try and tug your fingers apart. And you'll find that your fingers will stay together. And then you say, show me no. And they'll break apart. Show me positive. Show me healthy. Show me good. Show me weakness. The fingers will break. This is a natural practice anybody can do. And if you have the problem of overthinking it and wondering, am I just subconsciously telling myself to hold my fingers still? Don't worry about it. And the reason why is because everything that is strong in your field is a movement of upward power. So if you get a strong reaction, that is an upward motion. And if you get a weak reaction, it breaks. That is a negative motion. And you can check basically anything. You can answer any question. And the reason for this is because the physical dimension, the physical reality, is a result and reflection of every other invisible force and point of consciousness and light and truth and darkness in all of creation. What this means is that your thoughts and your feelings are the true source of your actions. And the world that you have manifested around you, your life, your lifestyle, the way that you think and you believe about the world, all of that is a result of the invisible forces of thought, feeling, and the invisible movements of spirit. As a result of that, you really don't have to think so hard when it comes to muscle testing. You can say very simply, is this healthy for me? Yes. Is this good for me? Does this move me to a higher consciousness? And if you get a strong connection, you got it. And if it breaks, then you go, is there a better answer? Yes. You would say, what is it? But your mind can come up with a yes or no answer, or a yes or no question that you can ask that will allow for a truth to be made known, because as above, so below, the body will reveal the truth in the most authentic way. And then you will be called to trust. Because if God says, or Spirit says, your body says, through the answering of this question, that the best thing for you is to do something that you don't normally do, maybe you have a call to talk to a random stranger, and you check, and it's like, is this wise? Is this the best thing? Yes. That's scary for me. Take a leap of faith. Go and say hello. And the reason that it works this way is you'll see that courage is at 200. Right here. Right here. It takes courage for us to be able to follow in the will of Spirit, to follow in that which is divine and good for us and healthy, because it means breaking out of our boundaries and our limitations and our scarcities and our fears and our anger and our guilt and our shame and our suffering. Because many people are down here. And it's time for us, we're called to move to a higher frequency now. And so you can test anything, and you can ask, what is the level of consciousness of blank? So if I said, just in this moment, what is the collective level of consciousness on average of the entire world? Start at 50, 75, 100, 125, 150, 175, 200, 199, 200. Ooh, it's right at that line. Because there's a lot of suffering here in this world. But everything is connected. And as a result of this video alone, and you watching it, and you testing yourself and where you are on the spectrum of consciousness, will raise the frequency. Simply the thought of benevolent enlightenment helps to make it so. And by receiving this message and taking this in, you yourself become an instrument of divine music to support the transformation of all of humanity through your collective consciousness, through our collective consciousness, through your individual consciousness, through the love that we all share. Now, this is a process that we're all going to be going through, and I want to invite you to take a moment here to feel into, for yourself, where you are on this chart. And you can just be completely real with yourself. Work your way up. Start at 20 and keep testing until it breaks. If it breaks at 150, don't worry. Let go of your shame. It's perfect. It's in complete divine order. Because now you have this information and you can use the muscle testing. You can use the wisdom of the chart, the field of collective understanding, of the map of consciousness, to make a pathway for yourself to raise your frequency. And this is how you do that. By testing everything. So when you get invited to some party that your friends are throwing on, you can say, is this going to bring me up or bring me down? No, it has a good feeling, has a good resonance. Good, I'll go. I'll spend some time with my friends and have a great time. But maybe you get a different pull. You're invited to some event and, it's weak. The field is weak. It's a negative effect. It brings you down. That's okay. What's a better thing for me to do? You can ask some questions, some more important questions for yourself. What about, I'm feeling like I want to stay home and read a book. Oh, yes. What's the level of consciousness of staying home and reading a book in this hypothetical? 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800. Whoa, it's like 750, 780, 790, 795, 794. There it is. This is a hypothetical, but I'm getting the feeling I might be reading some books later instead of going to some parties. Then you can compare it. What's the frequency of the house party? 200, 300, 400. Oh, it's like 350, 375. It's somewhere in there. And now you have a very clear way of understanding the different level of frequency between the different things. You can test what your reality tests at, and you can bring in vibrations that are good for you. In his book, Power versus Force, where he introduces a lot of these concepts, Dr. Hawkins explains that you can very simply, one of the best ways of cleaning house is go to your own personal library, all of your books on your bookshelves, and go through it and say, is this one resonant to truth or is this a false light? And go through and do the muscle testing on that which is positive and that which is negative. And he's like, all the books that resonate lower than 400 or 200, you can just get rid of them. You can donate them and release them from your field and not worry about them anymore, and use the muscle testing to only allow things into your life that are benevolent. Another thing that one of my friends and team members shared with me recently was that he is testing all of his clothing, and he doesn't wear clothes lower than a vibration of 400. And this can be very fun, because you can start to play with, well, what's the level of consciousness for Thoth, the Atlantean? And you start working your way up, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, and you can play with that with Jesus. And I have some notes here of some very important things. First, please understand that the specificity and quality of your question determines the quality and specificity of your answer. It's very, very important that you continue to ask questions until you distill the ultimate truth, because otherwise you might get a weird answer sometimes if your question is vague or muddly. And to that end, you can even distill the question by asking questions like, have I got to the bottom of this? No. Does it have to do with this? Yes. So you'd have to come up with a yes or no question to be able to test A or B, A or B, and you'll get strong or weak. Sometimes you might get two strong things. And in that case, you can say, is it better to do this one or that one? Let's say you're having dinner, making a meal for your family. Is it better tonight to have a big salad or a big soup? Well, checks the salad, test the soup. Oh, the soup is stronger. Go with that direction. And it takes that courage to have that leap of faith that gets you over the 200 line until you move into a state of just higher understanding, higher wisdom, higher knowing, higher connectedness to spirit in its fullness, to God in his divine light, and to the Great Mother who is us and through us and continually birthing creation through the light in our hearts. There's another piece of this that I want to draw very briefly, which is that we do kind of have this spectrum in the consciousness of your highest frequency, your lowest frequency, and then your middle, your average frequency. Because let's face it, when you are in meditation, when you're in prayer, when you're fasting, when you're engaged in some sort of spiritual practice, something for you, you can go up to a very high level of wisdom and high level of consciousness. You might be peaking at 999, just short of perfect enlightenment. But then you come out of your meditation and then you go back to work and you meet someone who just rubs you the wrong way, and you have an experience that brings you down to this lower state of maybe it's like 150. You have some anger. 125. Ooh, it's a tough place. But as you harmonize and go throughout your life, you find a middle. And on average, maybe you're in the 400 range. And that's perfect. Because we understand that we exist both in space-time, time-space, and dream-time. If that is a foreign concept to you, and you want to learn more, there's a video that I recently posted on the Spirit Mysteries YouTube channel called How I Activated My Merkaba Light Body, and how you can too. And if you haven't seen that, you can use the link at the top of this thing or in the description here, and you can check that out. Before we complete this particular section though, I will say this. There's also a need to understand that the inflow and the outflow are the same flow. What that means is that you may be perceiving a lot of separateness in the world. Depending on your level of consciousness, looking at these charts here, what we can see and understand is that in the lower levels of consciousness are based in a reality of separation, especially below 200. Even like here on this chart, or here on this chart, the difference is separateness and unity. But as we exist on a lower frequency, even if our lower state, unless it's above the lowest frequency within us is above 200, we'll still be perceiving a lot of separation, a lot of disconnection from ourselves, from our higher selves, from spirit, from God. And that's okay. It's important not to judge yourself, no matter which level that you're at. Simply knowing that the more you move higher to a higher level of consciousness, the more unity you perceive, until you reach a point at 1,000 where you supersede the forces of darkness in its entirety and perceive all things as hanging from the one. Meaning all of the human bullshit of the Matrix, as we might call it, all of the politics and the world wars and the fighting and the scarcity and the fear and the anger, it's all completely perfect and by design when we understand that we're creating our own reality. And so this chart, this understanding and the wisdom of the muscle testing, which I highly encourage you to test literally everything, at least for a couple days, if not a couple weeks and onward forever, until you transcend the need to do it. It truly allows you a moment-to-moment direct link to truth and love and authenticity. And when you lead all of your actions from that and test every question against your heart and feel within your heart the absolute truth, you will create peace, wisdom, and harmony in your life and the lives of everyone else around you. This is the Sri Yantra Mudra. At least one Sri Yantra Mudra. I've seen a few. I want to invite you to take a moment, 15 minutes will do, to meditate with this mudra. 15 minutes is all that's required to first activate the frequency of this mudra within you. And the more time that you spend with it, the more strongly it will resonate within you. I want you to know that I've been working very diligently on creating a Merkabic activation course. This is a 3-week long experience, actually a 4-week, but it's 3 classes long activation experience that we're going to be doing live inside of Spirit Mysteries. If you're interested to learn more and join this event live and join the school for ascension and self-mastery, please use the link in the description to learn more and enroll. We have a new plan available with this course specifically, as well as one that is called Initiate Plus, all in forever. This plan gives you full access to the Initiate membership with all of the current courses that we offer and lifetime access to the community. It would be an honor to share in this sacred space with you as we ascend in consciousness and move into a world where we actually become benders of the elements, Jedi, and Super Saiyans. Thank you very much. I love you, I trust you, I honor you, I value you, and I will see you later.